Well, another milestone.
We made it, buddy.
We got here somehow.
Somehow, some way, we made it. It's July 18th, the year 2022. And ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to episode 600 of the CrushingIron
600. Yeah, if you could see where I'm doing episode 600, you wouldn't believe it.
And you would probably think, how are these guys even made it to 600, and why are people still listening to them? Because, yeah, you're probably sitting in your mom's basement, I'm sitting upstairs in the bedroom. But yeah, somehow we've made it, and we hope you made it through the weekend. Pretty busy weekend, not nearly as busy this upcoming one with, I think, Ohio 70.3, like Placids this weekend. A lot of great races here in July, but we hope you had an amazing weekend. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have, man, let's face it, you get a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe, and just podcasts in general. Your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We will do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We will do race recaps. We'll also do race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through and life in general, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We'll also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. We work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes looking at their very first 5K or sprint, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to Kona, and everyone in between. And we will oftentimes talk about the feedback that we have with them and the communication through Training Peaks, emails, text messages, phone calls, TikTok, Instagram, sliding into DMs, and everything in between. And we'll use that to drive the topic of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, CrushingIron Group. Answer one simple question, and we'll let you right in. Great resource, great community, awesome people in there, and it's free. And there are generally some awesome people in there that are very experienced. So in a sport that's oftentimes confusing, there's a lot of info out there. Hop in the group, ask some questions, and get some straight-up feedback from people who have probably been around the block quite a few times and either made the mistake or have made the right choice, and can pass that knowledge on to you, free of charge, with plenty of good people in there, again, to support you in your races. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we do have one agenda, and we have for the last 600 episodes. And that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yes, we do. And today I think we're going to kind of focus on that. I don't know about you, Coach.
We are, yes.
I've had some themes cropping up. Like,
now.
Boy, I feel really great, Coach. It's awesome. And then you go back in 2 days later and it's like they're ready to quit the sport. You ever see that one?
The sky's falling, man.
Yeah.
The sky, it's July. And I think we've skirted around it a few times, maybe the last 3 or 4 podcasts, but it is, and I generally think June, July are some of, if not the hardest months of the year. I think July, offers quite a few obstacles for most athletes, especially for parents, and then for people who have later season races. It's just, listen, we say this every year. It's just so fucking hot right now. It's like, look in the forecast here in Overland Park. It's like, I think 3 days it's going to be 102, 103. Last Thursday, I think it was, last Thursday, Hayden was like, hey, let's go ride our bikes. I'm like, dude, it's hot outside. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon too. He wakes up from his nap. I'm like, dude, it's 3. He's like, let's check the weather. I'm like, all right,
check the weather.
Pull up the app. And because if it's over 100, we generally just say, like, dude, we're not playing outside. Like, you're going to be toast. And he looks at it and it said 92. He goes, oh, dude, Dad, it's only 92. And I'm like, see, that's where we are right now. We look at 92 and we're like, that's not that bad. But it's brutal. And again, for most athletes, we have a lot of long course athletes that are racing, in July. Lake Placid is still fairly early in the year, but most of the full distance, and then most of the 70.3s, they're the rest of the year. And you've been training outside, your volume's kicking up, you're battling, work stress, life stress, heat stress, more volume. Some people are doing more intensity, and it's just a lot. And you wake up and you look back and you're like, how am I I'm going to suffer more, because, one of the biggest things that makes it so challenging, aside from the physical, right? The obvious physical demands of increased volume, more miles on the bike, more hours, swim, bike, and run all over the place. It's just more demanding. So you got more recovery time. But I think honestly, the biggest thing is that the heat zaps you and just zaps you for good. Like you're almost, you can't do anything the rest of the day. Most people are just wrecked. Even if they do go outside and do something easy, if it's 90-degree heat, 100-degree heat, and you got out late in the day, you're zapped. You can't be productive the rest of the day. You're toast. But I think the biggest thing is mentally looking at your numbers, running and riding, and then especially for swimming outside, it's hard to see a ton of improvement because of two things. One, it's so hot, right? The dew point humidity is not going to allow you to see these like really blazing, fast splits and this vast improvement outside. And so you got that, but then you also have that coupled with increased fatigue. And I think we have a whole podcast called Fatigue Masks Fitness. And so you're battling both of those, which even though deep down in your heart, and you've heard it a million times on the podcast, or your coach has told you a million times, and you've been through this training cycle before, so how what is what. It still doesn't help, right? It's it,
right,
but it's
forget
like, it. I need something. Like I need a shining light. I need some 60-degree temps just to remind me that it's not all lost, right? Because that's what keeps most people getting out the door. And right now, I think it is. It's just really hard. You and I both have quite a few athletes that I guess are kind of singing the same tune right now. And it's just, I'm hot. I'm over it. I'm ready for it to be, my kids are back in school, and I'm ready for things to cool down, because right now I just feel beat.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's I've been trying to think about, because you do forget it, right? You're like, man, I feel great. Now I feel terrible. Oh man, I suck. You get that kind of thing going in your head. And it happened to me yesterday, and I'm always reminding people of it. But when it happens to you, you kind of need that reminder again from somewhere else. So I think that's kind of why I wanted to go that way today, in some ways, because and then one thing I try to do is, I'm trying to figure out a way to embrace it, because it's almost like I've been telling people, it's kind of like, every training session's not going to go perfectly, right? And when they don't, what's the upside, right? Or, there's always something in there that you can pull out of it. And for me, it's always I just look at that almost as a mental toughness day or something like that, because, I did a little trainer ride yesterday in the garage. It wasn't too bad here. But I did realize later, the temp was like in mid 80s, low 80s or something. But then the humidity was up, and I went out for a little run off of that. I felt great. And then I felt like there's no way. It was like 3 miles in, and just started beating me up. And I got done, and I'm like, shit, man, I was having such a good week, and now this. So I'm like, sometimes, like you say, you can't keep up with the hydration or whatever, and the fatigue of everything, and it all just kind of hits you at once. And then, today I don't feel that bad. So it's like really, not getting too caught up in, like that we talked about before, being a prisoner of the moment, because there's so many moments, and this thing is such a roller coaster ride, training for long distance, and, everything's not going to be perfect, but some days you got to put yourself through the ringer. And I always think about it as like, okay, that's a reminder of what I'm going to have to deal with at some point during that race. So I think it's important to kind of like realize and really be sort of aware of it all the time, that, things aren't going to go great. And it's so important to be able to, keep your mind straight about that, because it can just bounce back. It's just weird how it bounces back. And, as a coach, I personally know how my life has been going with diet and sleep and hydration and whatever. But a lot of times you don't see the variables. I mean, obviously you can't, see the variables of everyone's life all day, every day. And who knows why these things creep up or what has. But I think we each kind of know in our hearts why certain days become struggles, because it's something that happened 3 or 4 days ago, right? Or it's been kind of cascading. So it's just sort of I look at it as a reality check to kind of get your shit back in order, and like yesterday, I knew I probably wasn't, I probably did coffee in the morning, that kind of thing, and I felt pretty good. I'm going to get on the bike and ride hard or whatever. And then bam, it's like it just catches up with you. So it's just kind of a good reminder, and it doesn't have to be a negative all the time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, Michael. There's a couple of things. One, it's like, we always talk about, resiliency and being able to tolerate, hard environments, stuff like that. It's always easier to tolerate that kind of stuff when you're just brought into it, right? Because you've had you come into summer like, these temps aren't that bad. Yeah, it's hot. But we've been like cruising on 50s and 60s and 70s for 3 to 4 months, right? Like our level of hardness is fairly soft, right? I mean, I think pretty sure we're all getting softer in most ways, anyways. As a society, we're pretty damn soft. But we come off like, yeah, we got this, man. You're super optimistic, and then the farther you get away from the easy times, and the more you get smack dab in the middle of the hottest times and the hardest time, which is right now, like increased volume, increased duration, increased intensity for some people, increased stress, increased temps. You're like, damn, you're getting hit from like 5 sides. It's a lot. And you wake up the next day and you're doing it again. And the next day you're doing it again. Because, May and June, even sometimes like late June, we still have those few days, right, of breaks where it cools down just a little bit. You're like, get a break. Right now, there are no breaks, right? We have 0. And so it really is super frustrating for athletes or it's frustrating in general, because you just keep having to get up and you just it's going to suck. Like for a lot of athletes, there is no shining light of, I think I might go out and rip one today. You might, but it's not going to be the real rip, right? And so there's this thing that a phrase we use in recovery called future tripping. And when you're first getting in recovery and you're having to kind of make your way through and you're making your amends, and you want to like change your life, you want it right now, right? Like you've come up from, you've gotten sober or clean or whatever it is, and you're ready to turn your life around. And just because you decide not to drink or not to use or whatever it is, like you feel like your life should just change immediately. Yeah, I want to quit my job and this isn't for me, and I want to do this and this now. I want to change my life. You want it right now, right? And so one of the phrases like you'll hear in meetings, or you're sponsored, like, you can get frustrated because you go what they call future tripping. You look way in the future and you're like, I want that right now, or it's not going to happen. But in triathlon, and like in the topic they're trying to use today, I feel like you should go future tripping on your races, because the way I see it, and like I took yesterday off. It was my first day off in 2 weeks. Hung out with my mom, cleaned out the garage, did a bunch of stuff with Hayden. Is the last like 2 weeks when I've been all my runs have been outside. I've been getting outside on my bike at least twice a week, riding out. And even though I'm not seeing like these insanely fast splits, I am recognizing and remembering 2 things. One, I am seeing a difference in my ability to tolerate the heat more, because I'm becoming more accustomed. Like even just like walking outside, hanging out by the pool, I'm like, it's 95 and I'm not dying right now, right? And I know that doesn't seem like some huge thing, but it is. Like, or I'll go out with Hayden and we will go take a bike ride, and it is 95, 100 degrees, and I'm like, this doesn't feel that terrible, right? So your body's at least getting more resilient and adapting to the environment you're training in. But then the other thing I think about, like when I, in training, trying to get in shape for Wisconsin 70.3, I did a run last week and I was like, man, like, that didn't feel great. It surely didn't feel great. But then I went, but I was happy with what I did because I got it done and my effort was where I wanted to be. The pace wasn't, where I would, love to have it for a race day. But then I did a little future tripping, and I thought to myself, well, listen, the likelihood of it being 95 with a 72-point dew point and super humid on September 10th in Wisconsin, the likelihood of that, 0, right? Maybe not 0, but not likely, right? And now I pretty much just cursed it. Now it's going to be 100 degrees, but we can deal with that. We can deal with that in September. And so then I thought to myself, okay, right? Because it's like, there's this a phrase or a quote, that people throw around sometimes. It's like, champions aren't made in spring, they're made in the winter, right? In the basement where no one sees what you're doing. It's all the hard work. And you come out in this great, cycling fitness or run fitness, whatever it is. A lot of that is very similar to, we talk about seasonal EPO, right now you're building up in seasonal EPO. We always joke about it because like you train outside, you do all this volume and work in the summer months. And then that first cool weekend, you're like unleashing this, like it feels like you're like a doped up machine because the dew point drops, the humidity drops, the temp drops, and you can now express full fitness. So like, we did that podcast strictly about heat, maybe 3 weeks ago. It was real popular. And we even threw a chart about the dew point up there. It was like, instead of just looking at what the dew point is, look at what you're doing in that dew point and then look down on how much of a performance increase you're going to see once we get past this just hellacious period of time. It happens every year. But the thing is we get soft to it every year because then we have fall, winter, spring, right? All very, very favorable months. So we go basically 8 months out of the year where things are pretty favorable. And then we get smacked in the face for 2 or 3 months, and it's like we never can see the end of it. But I think it is good in that way to think I'm getting more resilient. I'm tolerating the heat. I'm still getting the work done. Man, when the temperature drops, I'm going to be ready to roll. So, and that's not that far away, right? Like we're here in mid-July. It's probably 2 months away. So we're closer than we have been, but it is. And it's very frustrating. And then the other thing that, I mentioned this morning in our weekly email, and you and I talked about it for a little bit off air, was this is that time where if you're doing big workouts, you're doing big sessions, grabbing a day off here and there, listening to your body, understanding that, one day off is probably the best thing you can do versus being forced to take a week off, or not just physically, but being so mentally deterred from working out that you just don't want to do it because it's just, let's be honest, man, right now, most of the stuff outside, unless you're able to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, it ain't that fun, right? Because it's just nasty. Even if it's an easy ride, you're sweating profusely, your eyes are all red because you got so much salt in them. It's hard, right? But I think it does allow opportunities, especially if you're trying to get back in shape, to just ditch the numbers and focus on the adaptations you're getting just from the heat, right? If you're working out, if you're getting heat adapted, your blood plasma is going up, which is very similar to, altitude training. Most people do heat training and heat protocols now. It's very similar and almost as, if not more beneficial than altitude training. Like you're doing good work. You just have to remember that in order to do good work and continue and be consistent at it, you have to be able to get up the next day and do it, right? So that's maximizing recovery, maximizing sleep, making sure you're hydrated, not just during your workout, but before you work out, during your workout, after you work out. Like I'm continuously seeing on the Greenway here, I see people all the time like, you're not carrying water. And I've seen you out here for at least an hour. How are you not roasted for like 3 or 4 days? And I imagine that they are. But that's just one of those things that you have to stay on. But do yourself a favor, especially if your race is in September, October, November. Do some future tripping. Think to yourself, man, if I'm handling this right now, I can't wait till it drops 30 degrees. The dew point disappears, the humidity is gone. I'm going to be ready to unleash. I just have to get through the next 4 to 6 weeks, and then I'll start to see a little more light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing, man, because, everybody wants to get faster and get stronger, and it just doesn't show up a lot. I think of it as, and I'm not the best at it, but it's sort of like this, it's all relative training in a sense, because you got to go out, you have to adjust, man. And you have to understand that kind of thing is happening, and we forget it. It's so easy, but like you're saying, man, there's subtle clues that you can tell, like you can, if you're within yourself when it's super hot out and you just have to go outside, and which I love to do personally, I prefer to do it, even if, it's harder but it's very difficult to train to that temperature or humidity to your ability right then, and understand and be okay with it, because we're always looking to get faster, right? And it's like, man, we're getting closer to the race, we should be getting faster, and it's like almost impossible to remember that sometimes, even, because you're feeling good. And one of the other things I notice is that thing about day off, like you're saying, I mean, I've been slowly trying to get more consistent. I'm testing myself out, see if I can get there. But I noticed that, a month ago, I might be able to go out and do an hour and a half run and feel like really good. But it was because I hadn't been doing something every day, And
Mm-hmm.
that accumulated fatigue just adds up, and it boils up with the heat and all that kind of other stuff. And it makes sense that, yeah, you can go out and do something. You can ride a lot harder or run a lot harder if you're not doing something the couple days before, if you're in the ballpark for it, and that's the thing I'm even trying to remember now as I get more and more consistent on a daily. I had a really, for me, it was a pretty big week of consistency, and I felt great on Saturday, and then yesterday it was just like off the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And on Saturday it was I went out and did a hard mountain bike, and it was a lot of that's in the shade, and it was a pretty nice day, and just I felt really awesome. And then I was like, I'm gonna get back on the trainer today and do this, and then suddenly it just took a turn for the worse. But I do, as a guy that's a little bit of an older triathlete, those days off kind of do matter, as long as it's not like 4 of them in a row or whatever, it's just like kind of getting your baseline back and then being able to go at it. And it's just sort of this ebb and flow throughout training that you're going to be rested enough, but still have enough fatigue. And I think that's just super hard for most people to identify.
I even think it's important to reframe what you even call your day off. Instead of being like, I'm skipping today or I'm taking the day off. Look at it like today I'm choosing to maximize recovery. That's it, because it is like, and that should be your job. But the flip of the coin of it is, and I think I've referenced before in other podcasts, is like when I hear, people talk about days off in the summer, like, June, July, August, early September. Like, yeah, took the day off and, went outside and, laid 20 bags of mulch and I weeded the beds and then I sat out in the sun for 3 baseball games. I'm like, wait a minute, stop. That's not a day off. Like, a day off is when you like sit your ass on the couch inside, binge watch something on Netflix in a dark room, drink some smoothies and put on some compression boots. Like, brother, that's a day off. Like what you're talking about does not sound like a day off. It sounds like a 4-hour bike ride, right? Like, so I think that's one of those things where we think that taking a day off of training means, you're going to be ready to rock the next day. Like even I can tell, like from Hayden's birthday party was Saturday, we have family in town, on my feet, socializing, doing whatever. I did it easier on Saturday than yesterday. Was on my feet all day, cleaning up the backyard, cleaning out the garage, doing all this stuff. Went to the pool with Hayden. I was like, I didn't train, but damn it, I'm still tired. I'm still pretty tired, right? Because you're still doing stuff. So I think that's, again, it's a shift where if you're going to take a day off, right, prioritize getting off your feet, sit in your Normatex if you have some, drink a lot of fluids, take care of yourself, prep for the week. Like, don't just take the day off and then bust your ass outside for 9 hours and consider that day off and then expect the next day to go, peaches and cream. Like you're ready to rock. You're oh my God, but I took yesterday off. What? Like, no, you're probably better off doing like a 40-minute easy run on the treadmill or an hour spin than what you did, because that's not as a day off. And so I do think it's just one of those things that we keep doing it over and over and over. We get frustrated. We get down. We're far from seeing, huge fitness gains, because it is about resiliency. And that's what people like. Like, they like that carrot. And it seems so far away that they start to think, because most people need that kind of motivation, right? And there's only so long we can do things without kind of seeing things. That's why we recommend, like in that heat training podcast, take things inside, like see some of those benefits on the trainer, see some of the benefits on the treadmill. If you've been some in the outdoor pool, go inside, right? Give yourself some opportunity to kind of see a little bit of a shining light and a glimmer of the fitness that you have. Just a peek, not the whole thing. Just to peek at it, right? Strike the match, don't burn it, but just see it. And just little things like that will allow you to see that, hey, it is in me. It's just being covered up by fatigue, by stress, by the heat, and just hang tight and aim low in your zones. Like if you're training by, intensity, heart rate, power. Remember, aim low. Those things are important. Let your body warm up, getting the job done, being able to do it the next day, fuel after. Like, we're telling you, we're almost there, right? And what's usually going to happen with all things in life, the moment you become heat adapted, the moment you become okay with the temperatures, here comes the cool ones, right? That's always how it goes. Like you're ready to rock. You're like, yeah, this ain't that bad anymore. 60, which again, oh, we'll take it. Like no one will complain about 60s right now. You just got to make it, and you got to make smart decisions and think about the long game, because you want to get to that point to where all this hard work you've done isn't wasted. But what a lot of people are going to do is they're going to force feed themselves. They're going to drive themselves in the ground. They're going to work out at 1 o'clock in the day when they should be getting up at 5 or 6, getting it done. They should take their butt inside. They're going to drive themselves in the ground, not just physically but mentally and emotionally. And then when you make it to the start line in September, October, November, you're going to have some great fitness. But what you're not going to have is the want to. You're not going to have the desire. You're no longer going to be motivated. You're just going to want to get it done because you burnt all your mental and emotional biscuits, which are just as important as the physical ones that you burned in June and July. Forcing yourself out, changing how you word things to, I have to go work out today. I have to do this, instead of I'm going to, or I want to, or I'm missing today. I'm skipping today. I feel like I'm behind. So you can talk yourself so much you can talk yourself into a great headspace, or you can talk yourself into a bad one. And a lot of people right now are starting that conversation where it's going to be on a continual loop and a continual recording for the next 2 months. God, I hate this. Why did I choose this again? That hurts, right? It hurts your fitness. It hurts your ability to be consistent. It hurts your motivation. Then when you get to the start line again, September, October, November, you're going to resent the work that you did, and you're not even going to want to do the race. And that's just one of those things where you have to kind of keep not just your appetite for training, but your mental and emotional appetite. Because we hear this phrase all the time from athletes: when life stress is super high, people will oftentimes comment, I just can't seem to find my motivation. I don't know what, I just became, so inconsistent. I'm not committed. I can't. I'm like, dude, you're exhausted. Like, no one does that when they're exhausted. Everyone falls back. Everyone takes days off. Everyone sleeps in. When you're exhausted and you're stressed, your body is done. And you can't have motivation, high levels of it, and the ability to be consistent and to stay committed when those things are happening. So think about that when you're training as well. Do I really need to hit that last interval? Do I really need to finish off these last 10 minutes? Do I really need to get out, in the middle of the day? I should have got up this morning. Am I better just taking the day off and getting back out tomorrow? Make those decisions, make those calls. They're tough. And in the moment, they might seem insignificant, but they build up, because the more bad choices and wrong decisions that you make about longevity, the shorter and shorter and shorter the time gets to burnout, to overtraining, to injury, and to just honestly total disdain for the event you signed up that you were so excited about in May and June.
Yeah, man, I really like what you said there about the show yourself some, get inside on the treadmill and kind of, peek at some of those gains or do something like that. Because, I mean, like optimistic thoughts go a long ways, these just like little nuggets, wind nuggets that kind of build on top of each other. And if you can find those, it's like, you go out and run the same route every day in the same heat, and then you're not really, it's like everyone kind of feels similar, the same, and it doesn't really feel like anything's going on there. But if you can see that once, it's just think about that in life. You get some good news, you might be kind of subconsciously stressed about something and you're not even sure what it is, and suddenly some good news comes in from, it could be anything, not just about training or whatever in life. And it's just amazing to me how the mental side of that can really just sort of change your day a little bit, And I think when you have that optimistic part of training going, or at least you can see it more frequently, even if it is, like you said, getting off a little bit early. Sometimes, that's a big thing with me, is when I'm riding and I feel awesome, and then I'm like, damn, I don't know if I feel like sitting on here for another, 15 minutes. And I just get off and I'm like, I walk away feeling like I'm really getting better, rather than just that fine line of pushing it over the edge or doing that last interval that might just trash you, just kind of getting out on top a little bit. And if you can kind of stack those on top of each other out throughout training, to me, that's a real solid way to approach it, because, it's sort of like you're seeing things. And I mean, we talk about it all the time, when if you're just kind of going through the mud and you don't really see like any improvements, every once in a while something might pop up. But why does it? Is because you're probably rested or hydrated and slept good and whatever, and that kind of stuff happens. And then you keep digging the hole deeper, and you just start getting into this funk. So it really is important, I think, to almost shake it up, just change your thought pattern a little bit and do something different and kind of get out of that mode where it's just like, man, I don't know if I can really see anything anymore, and it's real hard to trust that when you don't see it, I mean, for a long time, especially now, if you got maybe a couple months left before you're doing a full or whatever in the fall, it's just, you got to see something or you're going to kind of keep wondering. And I think that sort of perpetuates, especially for alone and training a lot of people train by themselves and things like that. And, you get in your own head and then you create, I don't know, I don't want to say like a boredom. I think a lot of times that boredom in life is something that we're all kind of fighting a lot because there's just so much stimulant, and it's really hard to kind of find that true excitement sometimes, and especially in training when you're kind of going through these long days and how do you see a glimpse of progress sometimes is a real good, I know this isn't everybody, but I know a lot of people go through it, where you're just kind of trudging along and it's like, man, I don't know what this even means anymore half the time, but stepping away from it, going to find a awesome trail or something that's different that kind of just makes you come alive again. Those are the things that I think we have to mix in. And you talk about it all the time, is like, do something different, just like get away from the routine a little bit. And then you it's like, sometimes you just come back feeling better about it. It's like, I can't, it may wake you up in a way where it's like, now I get it. Now I see what's going on. I do feel stronger on this trail. It was hard for me to see on that flat route I always take, So little things like that can kind of really, I think, inspire you to keep moving forward.
I love what you said there at the end. I actually had an athlete do that this last weekend. They've been, because we do that so much. Like, we do have 3 sports, but for us, it's one. Right. Mm-hmm. So we have options, swim, bike, and run, but sometimes it's great to detach yourself from the comparison of swim, bike, run and do something different. Go for a hike. Right. Go mountain biking where you'll surprise yourself and be like, man, like I am really in good shape. Right. Sometimes we need, a different comparison in a different sport. Kind of like I was saying, like just like hanging out outside or doing stuff. I'm like, really? It's not 100 degrees. Like it's not that bad out here. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm, and these other people just like dying, walking outside to go get the mail. It's a great thing to do. Like this athlete was like, this is just what I need. I went on a hike Saturday, went on a hike Sunday. I felt energized. I'm in great fitness. It allowed me to kind of like get my head back on straight and refocus. And I was like, beautiful. That's exactly what you should do, is make those decisions. Like to me, like when you started talking a minute ago, I thought to myself, what we all need to do this time of year is go find your $20 bill. Okay. And what I mean by that is how you talked about, how quickly your mood can change. Mm-hmm. You put on that winter coat, you go outside, you get in the garage, you reach into your pocket to grab your keys, and there's a 20. And it feels like you won the lottery because you didn't know you had it. Mm-hmm. You didn't know it was in there. You probably even know you had the coat anymore, right? Because you're just putting on the winter coat the first time winter. You probably went out to eat. You had some cash on you. You go in there to grab your keys, and you're like, what is this? A $20, and you're like, it makes your day. And again, it feels like you pulled out like a check for $1,000, but it's the surprise of it all, right? It's the, like that's pretty cool. Like, and it changes your whole mindset. Everybody's had that, right? You found something you didn't know you had, or you thought you lost it, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. Changes your whole day. Do something like that right now for yourself. Find a way to find your $20 bill. Find that special, or even, one of those really sweet, like, rectangular green chocolates from like the pretty sweet restaurants that you go to and you put in your pocket. You're like, I'll save those for later. And you're rolling out like kind of the mint flavor. Those are also money. And like, find that. Allow yourself the opportunity to find that kind of surprise, because It will. We get we get so close to the trees, or it's so close to forest we can't see the trees, or whatever, vice versa. So close to trees can't see the forest, and that's what happens. We get tunnel vision. We magnify everything. We're trying to compare last week to this week, or 2 weeks ago, or how are we going to be in 2 weeks? And I feel like I'm not gaining any progress. And we get so down and doing swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, 100 degree, 100 degree, 100 degree, long ride. Here we go again. Oh my gosh, spice it up. Do something. Go play, play soccer with your friends. Go do something, go hiking, go mountain biking, go play a pickup game of basketball. Don't get hurt, but go do something. Just do something to get out of your normal pattern and break it, right? Because that is what breaks people, is being so rigid. The plan doesn't break people. Their rigidity to the plan is what breaks people, because they don't allow themselves that flexible. I just commented this morning, an athlete, I said, I'm really enjoying this flexible side of you, because they used to be so rigid that if it wasn't perfect, it was a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's something else I mentioned in the weekly email this morning was consistency does not equal perfection.
Right.
Right. Like, I think that's one of those, that's just one of those things that I think people have this misconception. I got to be an all green week to be consistent. No, you don't. 8 out of 10, even 7 out of 10. You're doing so much better than most people. You don't even understand. Right? You're still working out 300 out of the 300 days a year. Most people are working out like 50, right? Or 0. You're still making it, but we get so close to it, we can't see the big picture. We can't see how far we've come. We can't look back to May. If you want to go back and compare things, look back to May. Right. Look back to the first 85 degree day you had, and you felt like you were withering and dying away in the sun. Your heart rate was sky high. Your pace was slow. It took you a while to recover. Your legs were like rocks. And now you're like, dude, 85, where's my hoodie? Right? Because you feel like you're going to freeze. You'd be flying. But so we just get so close to it. You forget. So detach yourself from it. Take a day, enjoy yourself, get out on the lake, take your kids to the pool, go to the park, take your dog for a walk, detach from it. And you're not even losing a day. You're gaining perspective. You're gaining positivity, because what you want is to reignite and toss gasoline on that fire that's inside of you, to stay motivated, to stay committed for that long course event or marathon or whatever it is that's in the distance. That stuff is throwing gasoline. Right? What happens when you get up and you force yourself to do it? You're smothering it. So light gasoline, don't smother it.
Yeah, man. You're talking about hiking, and I think that's like a really great one, because it's something that's hard, but it feels manageable in the middle of all this stuff. It's kind of like, all right, I'm going to go out and walk, but I'm going to climb some hills and do that kind of stuff. And then you realize that, yeah, you're pretty strong. And I think what that is a really nice active recovery too, for a lot of people, depending on where you're doing it, I guess. But there's something about, just walking and being on your feet. And, it's like we spectate Ironman and we joke about how great of a workout it is, but it really is. It's like you walk like 12 miles or something like that. And how can that be a bad thing? So, and the other thing you said was you're doing more than most people. And I think that is such a huge reminder. And I think about that in terms of, I'm still contemplating Ironman Wisconsin. So I'm looking at, we've done, people that have done multiple Ironmans and everything, you kind of have a gist for what you need to be doing and where you need to be and stuff. And I'm looking at a lot of people going, man, they are way ahead of me, and they're kind of worried about, because maybe it's their first or whatever. And that makes total sense. But it is something that you kind of look at and say, you're doing a lot better than you really even imagine, and here I am just kind of going, well, I can barely run 5 miles yesterday, but I'm still thinking about doing an Ironman, it's like, but it's just that forest tree thing is like really huge, I think, because you get kind of in your own head and you think about what you're doing and you're wondering if it's enough. And, I'm sitting here looking at it going, yeah, you're doing enough and you're going to be in good shape. It's just a matter of, taking those days to be seriously recovering and feeling good and not getting in that mental space where it's so easy to get at in this time of year, that we have to figure out ways to keep, find that motivation, that internal motivation, and just be feeling good and positive about it. Because, man, if you could just always have that going, how can that be bad? Like, get, that daily momentum, just a little bit of finding your $20 bill thing, and just keep going the right direction and doing what you're doing. And I just really do think that most people that have a hard time doing a long course event later in the year are the ones that end up they really start falling apart, you know. And it's so much better to, and I was telling my athletes this morning, is just please adjust on your own, on the fly, daily, you know, kind of look at what's going on, and don't, you know, do everything to the letter just to try and impress me or whatever if you're not feeling up to it. You know, if it's a hard ride and you're just absolutely wiped, either just spin for a little while or take that day or whatever it may be. That's way more important right now, I think, than, you know, I remember back to when I was training for my first Ironman, and it was like, seriously, I remember I was probably texting you in March going, Coach, I got to miss today, man. Is that really going to affect me in September? And I was like serious though, and I get it. So it's, and it even multiplies later, you know, in the summer, because you're looking at big stuff and big weeks and everything like that. And, you know, it's almost like, you know, if a week calls for 14 hours or something like that, and you can only get 12 because you're, you know, playing it a little bit, you're winning. You know what I mean? It's almost like, that's why I always tell people, like a lot of, you know, bike workouts or whatever will show up with 120 RPMs and things like that sometimes, or targets, you know, high targets, or some of the swim workouts, you know, maybe I can't do that on that, you know, rest or whatever. I'm like, no, you know, you can't always write a workout for everyone, but these types of things, you know, what I think about with the 120 RPMs is just like, set your high target that you can handle and get to, and just kind of push yourself, really. So it's always about looking at everything that's coming at you and figuring out where you're at, taking that inventory on your day, systems checks, and do the right thing for the right day. And just keep moving the right direction, you know, because it's not about thrashing yourself all the time. It rarely is.
Yep.
So I think that, you know, what we're saying and what you said about mixing it up and spicing it up here and there is a great idea. Go for a sup board, or, you know, go kayaking or something like that, and work your body in a different way. I think your body will probably appreciate it.
Heck yeah. I love that. You can go kayak and get on a paddleboard. Just do something. Get out of your head and enjoy yourself and enjoy it. Because I do think that's like the other part of it is, you know, people dedicate so much of their life, right, in their free time to this, that you do start to resent it and question yourself, like, oh, man, I'm not even seeing, you know, X, Y, and Z. Like, man, why am I doing this for? Then take a day and go do whatever the hell you want to do, because it's still your journey, right? But people are so concerned with, you know, going 0 to 60 versus just barely moving the needle, right? And what usually happens is, instead of filling your tank, you're heading towards E.
Right.
And that's just, you have to listen to yourself. You have to own your own journey. Have to know how you feel. Have to know the warning signs. You just have to pay attention to that, right? And stop being so worried about not, you know, missing every work, or, you know, not hitting every workout, or missing a session here and there, or I'm like, dude, just scrap it. Move on. Like, there is no such thing as perfect. Nothing, right? But the endless pursuit of perfection is what absolutely demoralizes so many people, especially type A, like triathletes. Like, they get so worried they miss like a week. You know, an athlete emails like, they got sick and they were out of town. Like, I missed a week. You know, I'm like, I'm just really worried about October. I'm like, are you for real? It's October. We're so far away. You don't even understand. Like, but I said, let's just do this. Instead of worrying about October, just fruitless and pointless, let's focus on the week ahead and just doing the best we can and see what happens. Right? Like, that it's such a lost art, right? Focusing on the day right in front of you. And I know it's a phrase I use all the time, like, you know, like one day at a time. And it's funny, we can end it on this. Is I guess an interesting little story. But yesterday when I was cleaning out the garage, I opened up this little plastic bin, and inside of it were all the letters that I got when I was in treatment. Every one of them. I mean, it's packed. Some of them from you in there. And at the bottom of it, when I took them all out, and I was kind of going through, some of them were cards, some of them were handwritten. And at the bottom of it was my 24-hour, my 1 month, my 3 month, and my 6 month sobriety chip. And I remember picking up the 24-hour chip, and I was like, and I went just immediately. I remember that day like it was yesterday. And I remember thinking to myself, like, here I am standing in like my garage and, in this place that I love. Hayden just had his birthday party. We had all these kids over, these people over the house and life in general. And I was just thinking, man, no way in hell would I have ever thought any of that was possible back back on that day. Because
Right.
I also remember thinking, oh my God, this is my life right now. Because it was like a Wednesday night at the back room, and I was just like, it was not positive. But I was just like, man, if I would have quit immediately. Immediately. If my dream was to have what I have now, I would have quit because I would have felt like it was impossible. But all I kept hearing, all I kept saying was just make it through the day and then wake up tomorrow and do the same thing. Right. And going back to like the don't future trip. Because all it does is trip you up. And that's just, it's one of those things like this time of year when you think about, just taking it and being so worried about the future, we don't have any idea. Right. But the best thing you can do if you want to set yourself up for success, to have the best opportunity, so it takes a lot of luck and whatever it is to do the best you can today. Make the right choices for today. And here's the thing is that none of them are the best choices you make aren't the grandiose, like large decisions. They're the small choices that you choose to make every single day that set you up for success. That's it. It's all small choices, and they might seem insignificant, but it's your ability to make those small, quote unquote, insignificant choices and make the right ones each and every day that accumulate like that snowball effect, right? Of you're not trying to move this giant snowball and create like an avalanche. You're trying to move this like, one piece of snow to another one. And it ends up being this gigantic thing that you've done and created. But if you ask yourself to walk out the door and move this one huge ball, snowball, you couldn't budge it and you quit and you walk away. You got to think that way when it comes to training and you make the right decisions and the small ones because they add up and you can't go negatively, future tripping like I can't do it. But take the fitness you're gaining right now, take the heat acclimation, take the things you are doing, take a day off, and think positively about the future. Don't predict it, but think positively about it, and good things will come.
And I guess the big snowball in this case would be Ironman. If you wake up today and want to go out and start moving it, and it's like, no, man, you got to start a little bit smaller and push it around. And I think just quickly, the one thing that always occurs to me is that, we're doing this sport to be in good shape and make life feel better and be happier people. And, to be able to go out and get in a kayak, like we were saying, and just go around like half the day and feel good about it. If you want a reminder of how this sport's helping you, call up, some of your high school buddies and ask them to go play some hoops or something. Or, I remember about last year I was mid-training and we went up to the lake and me and my buddies were out shooting. We were just playing horse. And I'm wearing flip-flops and, I didn't realize it about halfway through the whole horse thing, these guys just started sitting down and I'm just jumping around and flying around, just shooting half-court shots and all kinds of stuff. And they're like, Jesus, man, what the hell's going on? I go, what? I didn't even notice it, but just the fitness level of doing everyday life things that come up. I mean, that we get so immersed in everything that we don't even recognize that half the time. But, whether it's getting out and doing yard work or just, hanging all day with something when everybody else is just getting wiped, those are the things that we have to remember that's what's happening on the inside and it's paying off in daily life. So, see a win there.
All about winning, man. Find your wins. Don't just look for them in swim, bike, and run. Find them elsewhere. Yeah. Especially when if all you're doing is feeling losses, find something. Again, find that 20 spot. Or I looked up online. I think it was called Aces. Those little green mints with like the little chocolate with like the green stripe in the middle.
Oh,
money. And only your grandparents take you to those kind of places too. Like I remember my grandparents take us to these places and leave and like, get one. That's like, you think they're like fancy mints. I can't get one of those fancy mints. And I'd grab like 6. Yeah, that's a place your grandparents take. The supper club.
The supper clubs are up here, man. They're everywhere.
That's right.
The
You're becoming
breadsticks and the celery.
You're
And,
becoming the man.
yeah.
Have you a quick follow up, and then we'll let everybody go. But have you gone back and done any more on deck strip teases for the ladies at the senior ladies at the PT club?
I'm thinking about going there today.
Sweet.
Heading down there today.
Love it, man.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
Yeah, if you can get a little YouTube video, that'd be good. We could post that. Motivation.
Yeah, I'll try. And maybe next week.
Hey, we're all looking for wins, man. We're all looking for wins.
And maybe next week we can dive into my bike fit where the guy never even had me on my bike.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear about that one too.
Yeah, he's a little bit unorthodox, and I kind of like it.
I was gonna say it's right up your alley, man. Right up your alley. As always, we love you guys. 600 is kind of crazy to think about, but we wouldn't be here without you. Appreciate all you listening and be a part of our community, being so supportive and helping us drive this train for the last 5 or 6 years. So as always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. And if you need anything from Mike specifically, you can go hold of him at CrushingIron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
Off to the old lady pool.
Off to the old lady pool. All right, I'll see you later.
All right, man. See you.